This video will be a quick recap of the entire story of Genshin Impact before the release of version 5.0. I'll be uploading summaries of the Natlan Archon quests as they release, but for now, if you needed a quick refresher on what's happened so far, then here it is. The story starts with our favorite little extraterrestrials, Traveler and their sibling, who descended to this strange land of Teyvat in the form of a falling star. As they try to leave this world, they are stopped and separated by an entity that calls herself the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles, more commonly known as the Unknown God. A seal was apparently placed on Traveler, causing them to lose their power. After being separated for an undetermined number of years, Traveler is now in Mondstadt with a floating fairy called Paimon who acts as their travel guide and teaches them all they need to know about the world of Teyvat. The 7 nations of Teyvat are all ruled by the 7 Archons, gods chosen by a divine hierarchy known as Celestia to rule over the lands and their respective elements. Visions are items used as conduits for elemental power. These visions are granted to select few people in Teyvat by the celestial deities. It's said that vision holders might have the chance to become gods themselves in hopes that they too could ascend to Celestia. Just note that Archons themselves don't give visions because they're apparently the bottom of the barrel when it comes to divine hierarchy. The takeaway from this is that Celestia is scary. The first of the 7 nations is Mondstadt, which worships the Animo Archon Barbatos. As a city of freedom, the Archon Barbatos has taken a more hands-off approach in ruling. So although the city has an entire church and religion that actively worships him, Barbatos is relatively absent. The Knights of Favonius functions as Mondstadt's leading authority, with Jean as the acting Grand Master, while Grandmaster Varka is away on an undisclosed expedition. Mondstadt's major crisis is that a dragon named Storm Terror has unleashed violent windstorms threatening to destroy the city. The Knights of Favonius have a plan, and as an honorary knight, Traveler is compelled to help. The plan is to cut off Storm Terror's power supply, which are crystals located in Mondstadt's major temples. But there's an issue. Storm Terror's real name is Dvalin, and contrary to current belief, Dvalin was actually a good dragon, who's even one of the 4 legendary protectors of Mondstadt. So what turned him evil? 500 years ago, Teyvat faced a worldwide crisis known as the Cataclysm. The nation of Conria fell and abyssal creatures ran rampant, destroying everything in sight. A wicked dragon named Durin attacked Mondstadt, prompting the Animo Archon Barbatos and the dragon Dvalin to fight back. Durin is successfully killed by Dvalin's fatal bite to his throat, but Dvalin inadvertently swallows Durin's poisonous blood. After the battle, Dvalin hibernates and returns to Mondstadt centuries later. However, with his honorable deeds forgotten, the people of Mondstadt cowered in fear. Dvalin retreats in betrayal and pain, which exacerbates the effects of the poisonous blood in his body. Now subject to the call of the abyss, Dvalin seeks revenge on Mondstadt. The only way to stop him is to purify the abyssal corruption in his blood. Conveniently, a mysterious bard named Venti seems to know how to do it. After stealing the legendary Lyre de Hermel, a tool belonging to the Animo Archon, the group heads to Starsnatch Cliff to summon and purify Dvalin, but their plans are thwarted by an Abyss Mage. This Abyss Mage is from a nefarious faction known as the Abyss Order, which seeks to destroy the 7 nations out of revenge for the fall of Conria, the kingdom that fell during the Cataclysm 500 years ago. Traveler and the group go to Storm Terror's lair and manage to free Dvalin from his abyssal corruption and from the Abyss Order. All's well that ends well, or so it seems, until a Fatui harbinger named La Senora steals a Gnosis from Venti. Venti is actually the Animo Archon Barbatos in disguise, and this Gnosis was a device used by the Archons to tap into the powers of Celestia. La Senora comes from a faction known as the Fatui, which is based in Snezhnaya, Teyvat's nation of ice led by the Cryo-Archon the Tsaritsa. The Fatui's motive is to gain control of all the Archon's powers by collecting their Gnosis. Mondstadt is actually one of the few places to have history with Natlan. According to the Genshin webcomics, 1,000 years ago, a tribe from Natlan was enslaved by the Lawrence clan who took advantage of Barbatos' absence and ruled Mondstadt as tyrants. The Natlan hero Vanessa, with the help of Barbatos, would free Mondstadt from the aristocracy, and she would later become one of Mondstadt's legendary protectors, the Falcon of the West of the 4 Winds. Vanessa would also become one of only 2 people in recorded history to ever ascend to Celestia, the other being Guhua from Liyue. To briefly recap Mondstadt's story, the situation with Dvalin has been resolved. The windstorms have disappeared, and Dvalin is no longer a vengeful dragon. Mondstadt is more or less the same as it was prior to Dvalin's rampage. The Animo Archon is still relatively absent, allowing the people of Mondstadt to live in freedom, and things appear to be peaceful so far. The Fatui have 1 out of 7 Gnosis. Just a quick note, even though the Fatui operate under the orders of the Cryo-Archon, we don't really know the state of the Cryo-Gnosis. So until we reach Snezhnaya and know know for sure, the cryonosis won't be counted just yet. Okay, so we helped out Mondstadt, so surely we'll have some information on where we can find our sibling, right? You know, the sibling we lost in the beginning of the story. The reason we're on this journey in the first place. A weekend Venti unfortunately has no clue where the sibling is, but encourages Traveler and Paimon to visit Liyue, the nation led by the Geo Archon. Once every year, the Geo Archon descends during the Rite of Descension, a ceremony where the Geo Archon himself descends in his dragon form to give his predictions on the business trends that will shape the Liyue's economy for the year. So surely, if we catch a Geo Archon, he'll have some information on our sibling, right? Liyue is considered the most prosperous nation in all of Teyvat, and it's also where Mora, the global currency, is minted via the power of the Geonosis. The nation is under the rule of Rex Lapis, the Geo Archon and god of contracts, and the governing bodies include the Adepti and the Qixing. The Adepti are illuminated beasts and gods elected by Rex Lapis, while the Qixing is a committee made up of 7 business leaders who implement the policies laid out by Rex Lapis. The Adepti and the Qixing disagree with the way Liyue's affairs are being handled. Adepti believe humans are too weak to fend for themselves, and the Qixing believe humans are actually self-sufficient without the Adepti. Ningguang is the member of the Qixing selected to perform this year's Rite of Descension. She's the owner of the luxurious jade chamber you see floating in the sky. Unfortunately this year, Rex Lapis descends dead, and due to being a foreigner, Traveler is suspected of his murder. Traveler is saved by Child, a Fatui harbinger. Ningguang has suspicions that the Fatui are in Liyue to cause mass hysteria. With Rex Lapis dead, a government restructure is definitely needed. So the Fatui are here to cast doubt amongst the citizens, cause panic, and while everyone's distracted, snatch the Geonosis from Rex Lapis's heavily guarded body. Zhongli is a consultant of the Wangsheng funeral parlor and is tasked with giving Rex Lapis a proper burial. Traveler assists Zhongli and procures special items for the funeral ceremony known as the Rite of Parting. As Ningguang predicted, the Fatui cause mass panic, so Traveler confronts Child at the Golden House where apparently Rex Lapis's body is being stored. Child reaches into Rex Lapis's body to grab the Gnosis, only for it to be, dun-dun, empty. A battle ensues. In an attempt to force the Geo Archon to show himself and surrender the Geonosis, Child summons the sea god Ostyle, an ancient god that had tormented Liyue in the past. At this point, the Qixing and the Adepti put their political differences aside and protect Liyue from imminent danger. Ningguang drops the Jade Chamber on Ostyle, sealing him once and for all. Traveler seeks out Zhongli and is surprised to find him with La Senora and Child. Apparently, Zhongli is actually the Geo Archon Rex Lapis. He faked his own death and has been living amongst the humans as a consultant of the Wangsheng funeral parlor. All this was done as part of a contract with the Fatui and also to test the people of Liyue to see if they can survive without an Archon's rule. Just imagine while Liyue is falling apart, Zhongli's just picking flowers for his own funeral. As per the contract, Zhongli willingly surrenders his Gnosis to the Fatui. Here's the state of Liyue after its Archon quests. Mora, the global currency of Teyvat, was being minted by the Geonosis. Now that Zhongli has surrendered the Gnosis to the Fatui, no new Mora is currently being minted. Zhongli admits that he didn't have an alternative plan for his resignation as an Archon and calls this a major issue from a financial standpoint. He literally just went, oops, and then just went into retirement. The Qixing now operates solely as the decision makers behind the US policies and regulations, with the Adepti stepping back to let humans do their own thing. Ningguang later rebuilds the Jade Chamber during the Interlude chapter, The Crane Returns on the Wind. The Fatui have 2 out of 7 Gnosis. Surely though, since we've helped 2 nations with their problems and Zhongli seems to be old and wise, he must know a thing or two about our missing alien sibling, right? Well, he doesn't, and Zhongli tells Traveler and Paimon to head over to Inazuma since news of his death will cause the Electro Archon to move on forward with her plans. Now, if you want to go to Natlan, you can now after getting to this point in the main storyline. 5.0 makes it possible for new players to go to Natlan right after Liyue. But on to the next region in chronological order of release. Inazuma is ruled by the Electro Archon A, and the Raiden Shogun is the stoic puppet she uses as her mortal vessel. It's kinda like her persona. In the past year, Inazuma has been in isolationism due to the Sakoku Decree. Violent windstorms around the region make sea travel nearly impossible. There's also a vision hunt decree in effect to confiscate all visions from vision holders. Those who don't turn in their visions would be punished. For some reason, due to diplomatic immunity, the Fatui are able to freely enter the country. Arguably, out of the region so far, far, Inazuma is in the worst socio-political condition. Aside from the Electro Archon, Inazuma is also led by the Tri-Commission, 3 organizations who oversee various matters. More than half the members are actually corrupt. Inazuma is also in the middle of a civil war waged against the Electro Archon by the Sangonomiya clan. Yikes. Traveler and Paimon get to Inazuma safely with the help of Beidou and Kazuha, and are put under the care of Toma. He introduces them to the Kamisato clan's princess, Kamisato Ayaka, who, upon hearing Traveler's deeds in Mondstadt and Liyue, hopes to get their aid in Inazuma's affairs as well. She wet-sock dances her way into Traveler's heart and tries to convince Traveler to their side. Toma's apprehended by the Tenryu Commission, and the Electro Archon herself will separate him from his vision. Traveler and Paimon attempt to rescue him but are overwhelmed by her power. The group retreats to Watatsumi Island for safety and work with Kokomi and the Resistance Group. The Fatui and the corrupt members of the Tri-Commission have been working together to whittle down the Resistance army. The Fatui had been secretly funneling in delusions to the Resistance warriors, and these delusions are basically off-brand knockoff visions which deplete the wearer's life force over time, subsequently killing them. Traveler wants revenge and attempts to destroy the delusion factory, but he's efficiently stopped by Fatui Harbinger Scaramouche. He's rescued by Yaimiko, the head of the Narukami Shrine. As the Electro Archon's familiar, she's aware of her weaknesses and trains Traveler in the ways of beating the Raiden Shogun. Also, as her familiar, Yaimiko was tasked with protecting the Electro-Gnosis. In order to spare Traveler, Yaimiko bargained with Scaramouche, Traveler's life in exchange for the Electro-Gnosis. Obviously, Scaramouche agrees. With the help of Yaimiko, Traveler is able to turn some commission members to their side by exposing the more corrupt members' involvement with the Fatui. The Fatui's plan was to destabilize Inazuma and create a market for their delusions, and they achieved this by bribing both the Tenryu and Kanjo commissions. The group proceeds to bring their findings to the Raiden Shogun, but surprisingly find her with Fatui Harbinger La Signora. For kicking Venti, taking the Gnosis from Zhongli Harabuji, and all the atrocities committed in Inazuma, Traveler challenges La Signora to a duel. The loser is killed by the Raiden Shogun's Muso no Hitotachi. So, bye-bye, La Signora, I guess. I wanted her to be playable so badly, and now I just feel bad for the poor Fatui intern that had to collect her with the dustpan. The Electro Archon A reveals that she was aware of the Fatui's meddling in Inazuma and allowed it because it posed no threat to her ideals of eternity, in which everything stays the same forever. During the Cataclysm 500 years ago, her dearest friends and sister, the previous Electro Archon, were killed. Since she suffered so much loss from the process of progress, her solution was to keep herself and Inazuma locked in a state of eternity. Traveler challenges her to a duel, and with Yaimiko's persuasion, the Electro Archon A surrenders. This is the state of Inazuma after the Archon quests. The Vision Hunt Decree is abolished, and visions are returned to their rightful owners. The Sakoku Decree is lifted later during Raiden Shogun's Act 2 story quest, causing an influx of visitors and trade to the country. The corrupt Kanjo and Tenryu commissioners are arrested for their involvement with the Fatui. A later finds new resolve as a leader, and she begins to play a more active role in Inazuma's policies. Inazuma seems to be moving towards a more progressive future post-Archon quests. The Fatui have 3 out of 7 Gnosis. Yaimiko encourages Traveler and Paimon to go to Sumeru, and this is where the Inazuma Archon quests end. Sumeru is the land of plants and knowledge, and it's led by the Dendro Archon Kusanali, the god of wisdom. Sumeru Academia is Tevat's largest known academic center and functions as the nation's governing body. The Matra are disciplinary officers for the academia and enforce the institute's integrity. The Eremites are a loosely organized mercenary corps in the Sumeru desert that accept commissions from various organizations depending on the pay. Knowledge is managed as a resource through a device known as the Akasha system, which was invented by the previous Dendro Archon Rukkhadevata, and this system is currently being powered by the Dendro Gnosis and managed by the academia. The people of Sumeru are connected to all the information in the Akasha system via the Akasha terminals. For some reason, the people of Sumeru don't have the ability to dream. The political state of Sumeru is kinda sad. The leading sages of the academia reject Kusanali as their Archon in favor of the former Rukkhadevata. As a result, Kusanali lives in seclusion and has very little control over the affairs of Sumeru. Those with faith in Kusanali are very few, and this development has caused the corrupt sages of the academia to have free reign. Sumeru is affected by the withering, corruption that happened after a ruler named King Deshret introduced forbidden knowledge to his people. Forbidden knowledge is a type of wisdom that comes from outside of Tevat. The withering causes areas of the land to rapidly deteriorate and decay, and the effect on humans is a disease known as Elazar, whose symptoms include the hardening of one's skin until fatigue, nerve damage, and finally necrosis occurs, causing permanent immobility. Traveler and Paimon arrive to Sumeru City with the help of Tugnari and Kale. Trying to see the Dendro Archon is going to be difficult, so they get the help of Dunyarzad and her guardian Dihya. Dunyarzad is a rare follower of Kusanali and has volunteered to organize this year's Subseru's Festival, a celebration dedicated to Kusanali's birthday. The festival is later shut down by the grand stage of the academia, and weird things start happening where everyone experiences the same day over and over again. A girl named Nahida reveals herself to be the Dendro Archon Kusanali and exposes the mass dream harvest scheme. Everyone has been trapped in a samsara, a constant loop of the day of the Subseru's festival. Everyone's Akasha terminals were being used by the academia to farm the dreams of the people of Sumeru. The process works by separating one's consciousness and placing it into a host dream, which in this case happens to be Nilu's dream. Nilu's the host. The now vacant dream gets harvested at the end of every samsara cycle or loop. But why dreams? Nahida notes that dreams are rich bundles of human wisdom since the mind is most active when dreaming. However, this constant state of dreaming causes fatigue. In order to stop the samsara, they have to wake up Nilu. The mass dream harvest scheme was an experiment started by Fatui Harbinger Ildetore and a promise to provide the academia with a new god, superior to Nahida. The vessel for this new god is fellow Harbinger Scaramouche, who has the Electronosis from Inazuma. Nahida and Traveler defeat the newly born god Scaramouche and remove the Electronosis powering his new form. Scaramouche is taken into Nahida's custody and recovers in a secret location in the meantime. Using both the Dendro and Electronosis, Nahida and Traveler access the previous Dendro Archon's final memory for her wisdom to help them fix Sumeru's entire situation. The previous Dendro Archon Rugutavata had created Nahida as a branch from the Irminsul tree to serve as her next reincarnation. During the Cataclysm, Rugutavata was tasked with the huge job of protecting the Irminsul from the withering/abyssal corruption. The Irminsul tree is the database for all information and memories of Teyvat, so whatever happened in the world and who existed in it will all be recorded in the Irminsul. Unfortunately, Rugutavata is affected by the withering, and in order to clear the corruption and save the Irminsul tree as well as Sumeru and potentially all of Teyvat, Nahida needs to remove all traces of Rugutavata's corrupted existence and memories in the Irminsul. It's a painful moment, but Nahida finally obliges. The Irminsul is restored and the withering completely goes away, meaning all people suffering from Elazar are finally cured. The entire world essentially forgets Rugutavata, and only Traveler remembers her since they're not part of this world. Changes to the Irminsul only seem to affect people that are of Teyvat. Ildetore negotiates with Nahida for the Dendro and Electronosis, and through this exchange, Nahida learns the truth of this world, which is the fact that the stars and skies of Teyvat are a lie. Here's the state of Sumeru after the Archon quests. No one in the world remembers Rugutavata, and Nahida is worshipped and believed to be the only Dendro Archon. Nahida now oversees all matters and affairs in Sumeru. The Akasha system was shut down as a result of it no longer being powered by the Dendronosis, and as a result, the people of Sumeru can experience dreams again. The withering was eradicated from Sumeru, meaning no more withering zones and no more Elazar. Scaramouche tries to remove his prior existence from the Irminsul in Rugutavata style, but comes back into existence as Wanderer. The Fatui Harbingers have an empty 6th spot that's been vacant for years, as Scaramouche technically never existed. The Fatui have 4 out of 7 Gnosis. The next nation Traveler and Paimon go to is Fontaine, which is ruled by the Hydro Archon, a seemingly pompous pamplemousse named Farina. It's the most technically advanced nation out of the 7, and it prides itself in its art, culture, and scientific achievements. The nation has a notoriously complex law system in place, and the tiniest infractions are considered crimes that come with severe punishment. The Maréchaussée Phantom is the nation's law enforcement. Individuals are judged in the court of Fontaine, and although overseen by the Judex Nubillet, the final verdict is given by a device called the
Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale.
The Oratrice was invented by the Hydro Archon to convert people's belief in justice into indemnitium, which is the nation's unique energy source. However, Fontaine has been facing an energy crisis, and the threat of destruction looms over the nation. An ancient prophecy has caused panic amongst the citizens. The prophecy dictates that all inhabitants of Fontaine are born with sin that cannot be absolved. The waters will rise, and all the people will be drowned and dissolved. During this great flood, the sins of the people will be washed away. Only the Hydro Archon will remain, weeping on her throne. The Fontaine Archon quest can be broken up into 3 major acts: the Murder Mystery Act, the Prison Act, and the Final Act. In the Murder Mystery Act, a serial killer is going around dissolving Fontainian women. Apparently, the people from Fontaine are built different, and water from a place called the Primordial Sea can kill them/dissolve them. The 3 suspects are Lyney, Child, and a man named Marcel. Lyney is cleared of all charges, and it just so happened he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. We also learned that Lyney and his siblings work for the Fatui Harbinger Arlequino and the House of the Hearth. Marcel is revealed to be the serial killer and had done so as an experiment to bring back his dead wife who had accidentally dissolved in the primordial sea. The Oratrice charges Marcel as guilty for dissolving Fontainian women, but for some reason it also charges Child guilty of the crime as well, even though he's clearly innocent. Neuvillette apprehends Child, and Child is sent to the Fortress of Meripede, the national prison. This is where we enter the Prison Act. Fatui Harbinger Arlequino bargains with Neuvillette to secure the safety of Child. However, shortly after being incarcerated in the Fortress of Meripede, Child has suddenly gone missing. Traveler and Paimon are sent to Meripede to investigate Child's disappearance. In doing so, we learn that Child is in the Primordial Sea with an abyssal narwhal. The Fortress of Meripede was built by the previous Hydro Archon Egeria in order to seal the Primordial Sea. This abyssal narwhal has been harnessing the power of the Primordial Sea and has caused tremors throughout the land. The Primordial Sea starts leaking and is quickly sealed by Neuvillette. Unfortunately, the tremors and leakage of the Primordial Sea have destroyed parts of Fontaine, namely Poisson, where Navia and the Spina di Rosula live. My Twitch chat keeps asking for this, so I'll do it once here. Navia! This unfortunate incident causes mass casualties. R.I.P. Silver and Malus, man. This prompts the group to investigate the truth behind the prophecy. Now on to the final act. After uncovering ancient ruins, the group spot a mural related to the prophecy. However, a slate from the mural appears to be missing. Asking Farina about the prophecy slates causes her to become emotional, and she flees, claiming to know nothing about it. Farina's inability to save Poisson from the primordial waters causes doubt about her Archon status, and so she's put on trial for being a fake Archon. Poor Farina is tried and tested, and it turns out she doesn't even have power over the Hydro element. In fact, her abilities are very much in line with a normal visionless human. The final verdict goes out, and the Oratrice declares the Hydro Archon guilty, with her offense punishable by death, even though the trial just proved that Farina was not the Hydro Archon. Flamina appears having retrieved the missing prophecy slate from the ruins, and this is the true story. In the ancient past, Oceanids served as the loyal subjects of the previous Hydro Archon Egeria. These Oceanids had a deep desire to be human, and so Egeria used the power of the Primordial Sea to turn Oceanids into the Fontainians. The primordial water reverts the transformation, hence why only Fontainians dissolve when they come into contact with it. This was a massive no-no to Celestia, who declared that the Hydro Archon and her people would be punished for their sins. The abyssal narwhal suddenly appears, and Neuvillette as well as Child fight to hold it back. Meanwhile, the Oratrice is powering up, ready to carry out its death sentence. Traveler rushes to Farina, and coming into contact with one of her tears sends both Traveler and Neuvillette into separate realms. Neuvillette meets the true Hydro Archon, Focalor. After Egeria's death during the Cataclysm, Focalor ascended as the next Archon. In order to prevent the prophecy, she split herself into 2 parts. Her divine spirit remained as Focalor, and her human body became Farina. She placed a curse of immortality on Farina and instructed her to pretend to be the Hydro Archon in order to avoid Celestia's gaze. Farina played this role painfully for 500 years. Meanwhile, Focalor was accumulating massive amounts of indemnitium from the Oratrice in preparation to give Celestia the biggest middle finger of all time. All of the nation's stored indemnitium would be used to kill herself, thereby destroying the Hydro Throne. This is the biggest screw you to Celestia, since it means there can no longer be a Hydro Archon after this. Ever. In the ancient past, Tevat's original species were the dragons and their rulers, the 7 sovereigns. A god known as the Primordial One defeated the sovereigns, colonized the land for humans, and the power over the elements would much later be distributed among the 7 Archons. Neuvillette is actually the successor of the Hydro Dragon Sovereign. This means that by killing herself and the Hydro Throne, the power over the Hydro element will be returned to Neuvillette. With his full power restored, Neuvillette absolves the sin of all Fontainians. Neuvillette and Traveler enter the Primordial Sea to finally defeat the all-devouring narwhal. The Child's Master Skirk informs them that the narwhal has unfortunately already done damage to the nation due to it rocking the Primordial Sea during their fight. The Great Flood happens, but due to Neuvillette absolving the people of their sin, no one dissolves. Everyone is saved by the Fontaine cast. Honorable mention for Riesli's ship. This is the state of Fontaine after the Archon quests. The nation rebuilds very soon after the Great Flood. Verena leaves the Opera Epiclese and lives away from the public eye. Even though she was technically never the real Hydro Archon, the citizens still have a lot of respect for her. Neuvillette promises that she will be taken care of, and she later receives her Hydro Vision. Neuvillette is now in charge of Fontaine. Childe is MIA after his master Skirk threw him into a portal. In exchange for helping the people of Poisson and aiding Fontaine's reconstruction, Fatui Harbinger Arlecchino is granted the Hydro Gnosis by Neuvillette. As of now, the Fatui have 5 out of 7 Gnosis. Neuvillette advises Traveler and Paimon to go to Natlan, the Nation of War, where we might run into Fatui Harbinger Capitano. Now, before I give you a quick overview about what Natlan's plot currently looks like, what happened to our sibling? We find out through a series known as the Traveler Archon quests. These quests are kind of intermission quests which give you lore about the overarching story of Genshin, nations aside. It's some of my favorite quests for obvious reasons, so here's a summary of the information we learned from it. 500 years ago, the nation of Conria was destroyed allegedly by Celestia. At its prime, Conria was an underground civilization extremely advanced in technology and alchemy. The unique thing about this nation was that it had no god or archon. When Conria was destroyed, a lot of the surviving citizens joined the Abyss Order, the faction that momentarily turned Dvalin evil during the Mondstadt storyline. Again, they sought revenge against the Seven Nations and Celestia, blaming them for the fall of Conria. In these Traveler quests, we meet a rare Conrian and the indisputable best character in all of Genshin Impact, Minsleif. He's basically a walking treasure trove of lore, and it's through these quests that we learn some important information. Our sibling is the prince/princess of the Abyss Order. They witnessed the fall of Conria 500 years ago and traveled to Yvette with Dainsleif until they split and our sibling joined the Abyss Order. The Abyss Order has been trying things from reviving dead gods to potentially creating a device that has the power to rewrite fate itself. Our sibling appears to be headstrong in their goal to lead the Abyss Order to victory, and the last time we see them is in the Fontaine Archon quest Bedtime Story. They encourage travelers to complete their journey first, and apparently after that, we'll fully understand their motives. Maybe. This is the current state of the Natlan plot. Natlan is called the Nation of War because across thousands of years of its history, it's been at war with the Abyss. The Abyss has invaded an area known as the Night Kingdom, and they now have access to Natlan's entire history and memories. Because of this, Natlan is speculated to have less than a year before it's finally destroyed by the Abyss. Capitano is most likely here in Natlan to challenge the Archon for the Pyronosis. As a quick side note, the Abyss Order is a faction that follows the call of the Abyss. The Abyss alone is a malignant entity and can operate independently from the Order. It has its own will. So of course, it's up to our dutiful Traveler and Paimon to come to Natlan's rescue. And this is the story of Genshin Impact so far before version 5.0 releases. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a follow, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your leafy lorekeeper Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.